Supercharged, a podcast focusing on renewable energy and the passion behind the movement. Supercharged is a thoughtful journey through renewable energy sustainability and an integrated lifestyle. Subscribe and listen each week as we chat with thought leaders, influencers, and those who simply choose to live a better way. And hopefully, along the way, you too will be inspired to live supercharged. This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Supercharged, and I have a special guest today, Gordon Olson from the beautiful western or kind of northwestern landscape of the United States. Gordon, thanks for joining us on Supercharged.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate having me on here. It's great.
So I'm anxious for you to tell everybody that's listening, who is Gordon Olson?
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder and CEO of Torii Industries. And Torii Industries is building a high efficiency, low upfront cost, and environmentally sustainable tankless hot water heater.
So, I mean, you told us what you do, but you got to tell us who you are. So that was really effective how you did that. We're anxious to know about family and background and, you know, where you live and all the good stuff.
Yeah. So, you know, I originally grew up in Idaho and then moved to Montana, and I've been in Montana now for about 10 years. And call Montana home now. You know, it's a beautiful place to be. The culture is good. The people are great here with it. And, you know, throughout my whole life, I've always loved technology and really, you know, taken an interest in it on just the benefits that it can provide people, you know, from helping them to be able to work less or speed progress up. And I mean, you look at the past 100 years of where we was to where we've gotten to and how much better healthcare and transportation, everything has gotten. And I always just look to the future and say, you know, it's just going to keep getting better from here.
So I love the idea of the kind of, you know, technology and productivity and how it can kind of improve our lives. But this podcast focuses a little more on kind of the intersection of like sustainability and the environment and really how technology may intersect that. So walk us through kind of maybe early days. I mean, when did this become a little bit of a passion for you? And I'm really curious, you know, after that, like, how would you define the term sustainability?
Yeah, you know, so as a business wise and looking at technology, you know, sustainability to me is looking at the whole supply chain together, not just that end product and what a consumer is going to do with that end product, but what actually went into that product. What, you know, whether there was chemicals, the process of manufacturing it, where the materials came from originally. You know, there's a lot that goes into our everyday products that people don't really tend to think about.
I mean, I love that you've been the first guest that ever defined it almost in terms of the process instead of maybe like the output. So dig a little deeper. So when you're looking at that, so what's kind of the measure, you know, when you're looking at the supply chain, what in your mind, what is kind of acceptable and what's unacceptable when you're looking at that process?
Yeah, you know, it comes down at the end of the day. It's you know, if we're using a chemical to make some type of plastic, right? Is that chemical, can we process it and reuse it? Or do we have to just dump it? You know, can we find something to replace that? And, you know, at the same side of utilizing technology, right, to make things sustainable. You know, as a lot of manufacturers have switched over to being able to do this, right? For one, they've figured out, hey, you know, if we can reuse stuff, it saves us a lot of money.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a financial bottom line too.
Exactly. And, you know, it's a little bit of a different process than it has been you know, maybe 50 years ago. You know, thought process and we have that cultural change, and as well as everything that's, you know, going on, people are seeing the impact of global warming. And so it's more top of mind as well. Before it was just
no
easy
doubt. No doubt about it. Yeah, for sure. It's certainly top of mind, and that's one of the reasons that we're actually doing this podcast is because it is such a hot topic. And I think there's if you look at almost the extremes of the argument on both sides, I mean, it's like, let's kind of drill down and kind of wipe out that, and let's figure out exactly what's true. What's this truthful center point that we can find that actually is this beautiful intersection of business, technology, and sustainability. And so now it's
Yeah.
hard to make a living just because you care about the environment. So what was that shift? What was that business story that caused you to, to think, hey, we've got to do something here. I'm just kind of sitting around. I have nothing better to do. Let's just invent something that just helps the environment. So I doubt that's your story.
Yeah, it's an evolutionary, right, in that thought process. And so coming out and building a water heater, it was, you get, as you're building a company, you're looking deep into what problems can you actually solve,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so one of the things that we found out is 65% of the world's water heaters make it to a landfill. And then on top of it, if you're in a location that you can recycle one, most of the time you have to pay to recycle it. And that can be up to $30 just to recycle your hot water heater. And so then it came to the point of, wow, that's when you add that up, that is huge numbers. So let's figure out how we can solve that instead of just being traditional like the rest of the companies. We're coming in and we're bringing out a new product, and so let's restructure the business around sustainability itself as well.
And so why this specific, I guess, attack? Why did you, and how did that kind of lead you to say, okay, so the water's a problem, or using a water heater, filling landfills, it's having to recycle it or whatever. So how do you kind of take the next step? I mean, a lot of people may come to that conclusion, but they couldn't find the solution.
Right. Yeah. So, there's another problem as well with the water heaters, and that is they last for a certain portion of time, average water heater about 10 years. And then once it breaks, you don't know what to do with it, right? You usually just get rid of it, buy a whole new one. Water heaters, the technology hasn't really changed much in 80 years. It's one of those, well, all home appliances, right? You put them in, you're going to have them there for 6-10 plus years. Probably you're going to have your water heater longer than you're going to own a car. And most people,
Yep.
4 years, they're getting a new vehicle. So that gives us the opportunity to add in this subscription with it. And so that ties well with what we're doing, which is the circular economy. And so we can provide a low upfront cost for the water heater instead of the $2,500, $3,000 for an energy efficient one, and bring that price down. And then in a 10-year time frame, through that subscription, we're still under the price of if you were to go out and buy a new water heater itself. But that subscription acts as a forever warranty, you could say.
Right.
So if it breaks, it's just replaced. The old water heater's brought back. We recycled the old parts that were about to fail, put new ones in there, and take that same unit and put back out on the market.
So is your education are you educated in the mechanical engineering field, or is just something you just like to tinker in the garage? I mean, what's the real?
My background's pretty diverse. I've done a little bit of everything. I originally went to school for electronics. Mm-hmm. I've also went to school for massage therapy. And I've worked in.
I can see a big overlap there. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
That's how you ended up with water heaters.
Yeah,
you went from electronics to massage therapy to water heaters. Perfect. It's a perfect clean line. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've also worked in the oil fields in North Dakota as a floor hand there, and the manufacturing, I've always enjoyed it. Just the process of how something is created. And me being a lover of technology, there's some amazing technology in the world that could essentially save humanity, right? But can we mass produce that on the scale to get it to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's what binds us to go to the next step and go to the next level.
There are also companies out there that have a vested interest in those things not ever getting to market, that would say, like the oil companies are thinking, please don't perfect this electronic vehicle thing, because I mean that's our honey hole that you're taking away from us for sure. But so
Yep,
walk us
yep.
through the process of development, and how you came up with the idea, and how you got it from scratching on a napkin or back of an envelope to actual production.
Yeah, so a lot of that started out as what technology's out there that has the possibility of working and be more energy efficient than what's traditionally there. And when you look at heating water, it takes an enormous amount of energy to heat water.
Mm-hmm.
But once that water is heated, it lasts for a long time and can stay hot for a while. So diving into that, you look at induction heating. And if you're familiar with induction stovetops versus convection stovetops,
Right.
an induction stovetop is way more energy efficient.
Gets very
And
hot very quickly, and it cools down very quickly.
yeah. And so it was that at that point, it was, hey, can we take that same technology and apply it to heating water? And it comes to find out that you have to have some specialized material to go inside there to be able to do it. And so that's where the search began of, hey, let's find a material that can make it happen. And what ended up happening is us licensing some technologies to be able to, that were already out there, and putting it together. And so, anyone kind of starting up, there's so much technology out there. I recommend, first finding if it's out there, right?
Right.
That way you're not recreating the wheel and
Exactly.
with it. And most companies do that anyways. You look at big companies like Tesla and other manufacturers, they get lots of different patents and technologies, and you have to combine them all to actually make that end product. And so that's what we've done to be able to speed line the progress and bring it forward.
So how does this work? How does the process work?
Yeah, so we have it's a carbon foam is what we're heating up. And so with that being a foam, we're maximizing surface area in the water. So when you look at conventional tankless water heater, they might have 3-4 coils inside of it. And so you're only heating the amount of water that's being touched on the surface of that coil. Mm-hmm. Okay, which might be however many square feet of a surface area. Now, if you take a foam, we're maximizing that surface area exponentially with it. And with induction heating, we can heat the whole thing up using way less power than it would be to heat up a coil itself. And so by doing that, maximizing that surface area, we can utilize less energy to heat the same amount of water.
So we lived in Western Europe for like 12 years, and almost everywhere we lived didn't have a traditional, water heater tank. They had like these boilers on the wall. I think when I was hearing how you created this, that's kind of what I had in mind. But it sounds like to me that what you described from I guess aesthetics, it looks pretty similar to a regular water heater.
Yeah, but at half the size, you're looking at not even half the size, less than that, you're looking small scuba tank size, that will go on your wall and be able to replace your traditional hot water heater.
So how many gallons would it, I mean, is it like it will run a shower and then it's got to do it again? I mean, how's the process? And it sounds like to me that it's not instantaneous, but it's very quick to heat the water up.
Pretty dang close to instantaneous. Yeah. And what we're actually doing as well is we're adding a little bit of artificial intelligence with it. And so when you have most tankless water heaters, let's say they're average between 10 kilowatts of power up to 20 kilowatts of power, that you can buy dependent upon gallons per minute. And if you turn on just one faucet, then if you have a 15 kilowatt tankless water heater, it's supplying 15 kilowatts of power to it. Okay. If you turn on 3 faucets, a shower, or so forth at the same time, it's still going to apply that same amount of power. And so what we're actually doing is we can adjust that power level. And so we're reading the input temperature, the output temperature, and then we're reading the gallons per minute running through it. And so then we say, through the algorithms, we're able to say, okay, to hit that desired output temperature based on flow, we only need to maybe apply 8 kilowatts of power because you only have one faucet on. Or you have 2 faucets on, we need to jump it up to 10 kilowatts of power. And so in the end, that really cuts down on energy usage that you would be using compared to a traditional tankless as well.
So you just lost 98% of our audience with that, because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this guy was a massage therapist before and just woke up one day and talks about the artificial intelligence and algorithms of induction heating in a water heater and input and output. Like, how in the world did you, I mean, you're going to say I'm a voracious reader and I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I mean, how in the world did you land where you are today?
You know, I'm a curious person, I should say. I'm always tinkering in stuff, reading up on, you know, new technologies, what's going on. And I'm not one that just, you know, I've watched some YouTube videos, but you know, I like to actually get into
being a little facetious there.
Yeah, the scientific research papers, right? You know, studies that have come out from universities and like MIT and things that's came out from national laboratories. Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, you're like a walking encyclopedia of water heaters and how to make them more efficient. So how does this, how does it translate to business? I mean, so there's a lot of great ideas out there and a lot of great inventions out there, but how do you get that to the point that it makes financial sense, that you can kind of compete with the existing, you know, system that's been in place for 60 years? I mean, you know, I'm an old guy. I've never known a time we didn't have a water heater in the house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know, in terms of business, when it comes to that, you can have the very best just product that might have one variable that's better. But if you only are on good on one level, that's not really enough to compete in business. And so that's where it came for us. It wasn't just about the product, but was, okay, let's change up the whole business model itself. Instead of going from manufacturer to maybe a wholesaler, then a retail store, and then to plumber, or wholesaler to plumber, we're just going to say, okay, we're going to go from manufacturer straight to the plumber, and that's going to go to the consumer. And so we kind of put ourselves on, we say the Uber of the hot water heater industry. Okay. So, you know,
everybody wants to be the Uber of something.
Exactly. You know, so we're kind of adding in that same concept. So, you know, with that subscription, the plumbers actually get a kickback for installing that unit into someone's home. And that you know, helps them to promote our product
right,
or, you know, around that, and gets it out there better.
Now the installation process, I mean, it sounds like it would be relatively similar to just installing a regular hot water heater.
Yeah, as long as you have an electric water heater already,
right,
it's just a quick swap and you're done.
Right. You got supply line in, supply line out, just, and plug it in type thing. So, but from a smart technology standpoint, I mean, how are you measuring the flow and causing that to adjust the electric power coming to it, or you know, whatever you were talking about earlier that I obviously don't understand as well enough to explain, but how, I mean, I'm thinking like a Nest thermostat on the wall or something like that. I mean, is there something that is also an additional component that's kind of monitoring the system?
Yeah, so there's a lot that all goes in with it. Kind of just based on that, you really have your three components, right? Your temperature in, your temperature out, and your flow. And then with that, because let's say we already know that we only have to have two variables after that, and they're already a known variable that is saying if the water's coming in at 50 degrees Fahrenheit and we want to hit it at 120 degrees Fahrenheit, then it needs to be at this, let's say 2 gallons per minute. Okay. Then you need to add this much power to it. Okay. So you take two knowns, and if you have at least two knowns with it, then mathematically you can just calculate out whatever it's supposed to be, no matter what temperatures and flows it should be.
But is that set at a constant? Is that set, okay, I want all output water to be at 140 degrees or something like that? Is that how you're setting the system?
Yeah. And through we'll have an app, so you'll be able to read all that information.
Of course you do. You're the only one, an app for their water heater.
Yep. And so through that, you'll be able to pick, adjust your temperature, whether you want it set at 120, 140, 130, so forth. Yeah.
I love that. That's your unique selling point right there. It's your USP. We're the only water heater out there that actually has an app on your iPhone. So it has an app with it.
Yeah. And the big reason with having the app, it's not really to totally set the temperature. Like, that's the option, right? But that is really to connect the predictability of when it's about to die and getting it replaced and connecting with the plumber to get it rescheduling and get it swapped out. As well as, you'll be able to jump on there and be like, hey, look, I've saved $20 this month or however much, right, on power because I switched.
And that's also, I guess, a selling point to the subscription model is that you can, you may think it might be a little more upfront or a little more over the course of a year or whatever, but you have an offset in electricity savings to kind of offset the cost of the water heater. So how much is this a month? And is it variable depending on location, or can you have different sizes of these tanks?
Yeah. So, it'll be one set hot water heater for, that we'll be rolling out first and nationwide with it. And right now the subscription model for it is set out at $25 per month. And then we're looking right around, maybe I'll hold off on the upfront cost for now till we get a little farther with it. Mm-hmm. It'll be in the $500 range.
And that's really more for like installation, getting somebody out there to actually get the tank in the house.
Yeah, it's really it's kind of our relationship setup fee with it.
Right.
To say if we were to just throw these out for however much, $25, and you could just get it in, I'd be worried about that we couldn't keep up.
No doubt about that. No doubt about it. And you would need a lot of money up front as angel money to make sure you've kind of front end loaded all this all the capital you would require, for sure.
Exactly.
You can manage
that's a big thing.
Bit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big thing too, is that just the capital expenditure on that upfront cost. Mm-hmm. And so that's as well, that upfront cost is helping us out on being able to produce the unit and get it out there.
Is this pre-production, or do you actually have these, working prototypes in houses now?
We're still working on doing up our beta prototype and so forth, and getting software down, and a little bit on the hardware side. We still have to be UL certified. We're looking at getting mm-hmm. Energy Star certified as well. Once those are certified, then we're looking at going into production around Q3 of 2022.
Okay. All right. And initial feedback from plumbers you've talked to and others in the industry, what's been the feedback? Skepticism been like
no, it's actually been great. They there's kind of this transition and that's happening of you know, plumbers that are new that are coming in, and then the traditionalists kind of, you know, retiring and moving out. And so there's a lot more that are, they're up to date on technology, so forth, right? And I think one of the biggest factors with it is that getting that kickback, right?
Yep.
On the subscription, but being able to schedule with the consumer and connect in that, and not just on the first initial setup, right? But well into the future if it breaks. And so by doing that, they don't end up getting a random call that day and someone saying, I'm out of hot water, I need someone to come out next 24 hours to
Right.
replace this thing.
Right.
Is we give them, because we're adding in a little bit of prediction analysis on part failure, we can predict 2 weeks in advance before a unit actually breaks. And so that gives 2 weeks for a plumber and a consumer to line up a time to get that unit replaced.
That, I mean, to me, that's a benefit to both for sure. And nobody wants to wake up and their hot water heater is out and they can't take, I've got to be at work in an
Right.
hour and I can't take a shower type thing. So
Yep.
we talked on the kind of the macro level of business and what you're, you know, how you're going to roll this out in the next 12 to 18 months type thing. But let's talk a little bit more on a personal level. So what kind of drives you? What's your personal passion, you know, around sustainability?
You know, there's always a lot of talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, you know, I'm big on, let's not just talk about it, right? If you want to do something, go out and get it done, do something about it. You know, people can sit and talk about things all day long. You know, but if there's no action to back up that talk, then, you know, nothing's actually happening. So,
And you focused kind of on the water situation, not having to recycle water heaters. What are some other areas of your life that you've looked at and you thought, okay, here are areas that I could really, you know, have an impact personally? Like what are some other things that you do personally that would be, you know, you would share that others could kind of take on board as well?
you know, I guess the big part is just watching what products buying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of my thought process for me, it's always, you know, when I buy this product, I kind of run through what it would be like to manufacture it, what went into it, so forth, as well as what is the company? Is that company you know, a good trustworthy company,
Right.
or are they just promoting green sustainability because it's a trend?
Yeah. Yeah. That, no doubt about it. That absolutely. Absolutely. And we've certainly found both of those. So is there some kind of green certification that you're also looking for with your hot water heater as you unroll it or roll it
You
out?
know, none in particular. You know, that there's a lot of different ones out there. And um, you know, so eventually, you know, we'll look at doing that. But for right now, the main focus is, let's get it to production, and then we can really start to fine tune that sustainability and that aspect on not just our side of manufacturing, but the components that we're buying as well.
Right. Right. And just basically, I mean, when you talk about the fact that, you know, most hot water heaters are end up in a landfill, you know, and it's not cost effective to recycle. So people just would dump them anyway. I mean, that alone doesn't need a sustainability certification. That makes perfect sense. It's binary. It's either you do or you don't. I mean, it either ends up there or it doesn't end up there. So it's
Yeah.
pretty simple. But what are some other things? You were talking to somebody tomorrow. What's something they could kind of adopt in their own life tomorrow that you think would probably make an impact not only in their world but on our world?
You know, but make sure recycling, when you drink some water, you know, use a recyclable bottle, you know, instead of buying a new bottle. You know, whatever you're able to I guess, reuse and repurpose,
Hmm.
instead of just throwing it away or even recycling it, right? We recycle a lot of stuff, but some people that are artsy and crafty, there's stuff that people turn some what most people would think is junk into all kinds of cool stuff.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I love that. Reuse, repurpose, and recycle. Are there any resources that you could point anybody to? Any websites that you would look at? Any other tech that you would recommend?
I always like to follow the United Nations Sustainability Solutions Network.
Hmm.
So they have from research to policies that are coming out, and you get into that side of it. There's even a lot of news in general worldwide that you can see, as well as some new technologies that are being shared on the platform as well.
Well, Gordon, it's a great story. I mean, I love the fact that just out in the hinterlands of Montana, somebody has come up with a really, really unique and efficient and effective, way to deal with a real problem that exists. And I'm anxious to follow your story the next 18, 24 months and just see when these start rolling out, and just hope that this really catches fire, and you can kind of prove your beta test that you're going to do in the next 12 months and prove that this actually works and works well, and develop the software and app that goes along with that, and it'll just be interesting to see the story. But is there anything you want to add that just close us out today, and then tell people where the best place to find out more information online?
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Kevin. And you can find more at toriway.com. And on there, you can join us on all of our social media platforms. We're on LinkedIn and Twitter, and as we have a YouTube channel as well. And go on there, sign up. You can sign up and follow us for emails as well.
And that is Torii Way. That's TORIIWAY.com. Gordon, thank you again for just playing your part in helping this entire movement. Help us, thanks for sharing your passion, and thanks for sharing the work that you're doing to just make this place a better world. Gordon, have a great afternoon.
Hey, you as well, Kevin. I appreciate you having me on Supercharged, and it was a pleasure.